thoughts, opinions, and general overall shade thrown on High at 9 News are those of the individual speakers and not those of High at 9 News, its audience, or its advertisers. The statements made do not constitute medical, legal, or financial advice, and for advice tailored to your specific situation, please consult with a licensed professional. Welcome to the High at 9 News Hour, where you will hear from cannabis industry experts and professionals from around the country talk about important topics while shining light on global issues and discussing cannabis as it relates to politics, regulation and reform, data and technology, science, research and medicine, family and parenting, art, celebrities and entertainment, fitness, sports, mental health and wellness, and plant-based medicines and entheogenics. Together, we are building a stronger community, fighting the stigma and creating change. With your hosts, Jason Beck and Rico Lamitte, joined by special industry expert correspondents from around the country, and daily antics brought to you by Cannabis. Coming to you live every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific Time and high noon on the East Coast. And thank you all for getting high at 9 with us. Oh, yes. Good morning, everybody. It is Wednesday, July 3rd, and today is International Plastic Bag Free Day, which I think is totally stupid, and the fact that we have to go to grocery stores and pay for bags is just utterly ridiculous. Anyways, it's also National Fried Clam Day, National Chocolate.
Yeah, fry that clam, baby.
Oh, I know. You were getting excited for that, Rico.
Day.
It's also National Chocolate Wafer Day, Rico.
Double whammy.
Yes. As well as National Eat Your Beans. And of course, it's probably Jenny Beth's favorite day for this. It's also National Compliment Your Mirror Day.
Oh, my mirror compliments me, but is it also National Tooth Day if it's Eat Your Beans Day?
You see that? Yes. Thank you all for joining us and getting high at 9 with us. It's also high noon on the East Coast. And please remember to like, share, and subscribe to us on all social media platforms. You can look up above or down below on your screen to see exactly where we live on the internet. And we are live every Monday through Friday on YouTube, Rumble, Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and on our very own website at www.highat9news.com. But kicking us off today, that's right, we have the dope dad himself, Mr. Rico Lamitte, who is in the process of moving. So he's a little bit disheveled today, which is one of the reasons he's having a bad hair day. That's right, it is the dope dad himself, Mr. Rico Lamitte.
He's not wearing the hat. It looks great.
He's having a bad hair day. Just look at that hair, bro. That's a bad hair day.
Skin's glowing, hair's good.
In front of him. That's just Bong Burgundy doing his thing. You know what I'm saying?
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He reads what the teleprompter says.
If you're having a bad, I mean, it looks very uneven at the top, Rico.
Oh my.
So do you. You're very funny.
You're talking about his political party, not his head, Rico. So, you know.
Oh, man. My political party is winning right now, okay? Winning a lot.
Well, you know, man. You know, I got fried clams, chocolate wafers, and eating beans. You know, it sounds like your party's winning today.
I knew you were going to talk about those beans because they are the musical fruit.
The more you eat?
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Is a berry a bean?
No, berries are not beans. Berries are berries.
Okay. Jason?
Heard it here first.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, let's talk about Germany, man. Back out to Germany. They're having a little bureaucratic issues over there. So since April...
Did you say bureaucratic?
Yeah, he did.
Okay, just want to make sure. Yeah, just want to make sure. Yeah.
That's what you did there, Jason. And not bad. I like that. You know? But since April 1st of this year, the possession and use of small quantities of cannabis has been legally permitted in Germany. On July 1st, this past Monday, cannabis enthusiasts in Germany were permitted to congregate and or establish private clubs with up to 500 members to grow, distribute, and consume among their members. But as DW.com's Jens Thurman put it, this new regulation comes with many details and a lot of bureaucracy. Per Thurman's reporting, each member of the club may receive a maximum of 25 grams of cannabis, which is just under 1 ounce, and on one day, and a total of 50 grams per month. But it's unclear which government authority resides over monitoring these clubs. In Berlin, for example, observers aren't sure how the city's responsible districts will handle the licensing process. When speaking to DW, Stefan Geyer, the head of umbrella organization of German cannabis social clubs, had this to say. The federal states are extremely ill-prepared for this. There will certainly be a mid-three-digit number of clubs applying for a license, but how long this will take and how many of them will be successful is still impossible to predict. When Germany took its first step on April 1st, it legalized the consumption of small amounts of cannabis in public with many caveats. People above the age of 18 were to be allowed to carry 25 grams of cannabis, and enthusiasts, this is actual legal term over there, but it's not really defined. Enthusiasts are allowed to grow 3 plants and store up to 50 grams of dried cannabis in their homes. I guess by German standards, just because you're 18 doesn't classify you as an enthusiast. But again, what does classify you under German law? Nobody knows. This shit's beginning to sound a lot like America. The article goes on to say that Geyer believes that the new regulations have already had an effect. Far fewer, this is what he had to say on that. Far fewer consumption-related criminal offenses have been documented. In previous years, someone was arrested every 3 minutes because they had a small amount of cannabis on them. Didn't know it was that bad over there. In general, he believes German society is simply ready for the new freedoms. The trend in recent years has been toward greater acceptance. What I've noticed in the last 3 months is that the average age of consumers who identify themselves as such has risen considerably. Consumers have become more middle class and older, more colorful and peaceful. Colorful, huh? I bet you like that one, Jason. I see people over the age of 50 coming to the hemp museum almost every day. They're stocking up on hemp seeds and buying specialist literature for the first time in their lives. He's speaking on, he's also one of the organizers of the private museum in Berlin. These are all people who wouldn't have thought of setting foot in the museum just 1 year ago, if only because they thought it was somehow disreputable to be associated with cannabis. So, destigmatization is in full effect, but what about the opposition? Per the article previously, owning just 1 gram of hashish was illegal and punishable by law. Since legalization, however, a German police union has said it fears new criminal groups might emerge in the cannabis clubs. Alexander Poitz, deputy of the police union, had this to say in to the Daily Augsburger. We fear that criminals from the organized crime sector will use the possibility of growing clubs to expand criminal structures. In addition to that, the center-right political opposition of the Christian Democratic Union and the Christian Social Union are staunchly opposed to liberalization and have vowed to roll it back, should they again come into power in the 2025 general election. As we previously reported at High on 9 News, the state of Bavaria, which is governed by the CSU party, announced that it intends to take an extremely restrictive approach to the inspection of cultivation associations. Since possession of small quantities has been permitted, according to Bavarian Interior Minister Joachim Ehrmann, the police have already had to investigate almost 3,000 cases of driving under the influence of cannabis. The public prosecutor's office has initiated criminal proceedings for serious cases in 180 of such traffic offenses. In our view, the legalization of cannabis is a major mistake in terms of safety and health policy, says Ehrmann. The article goes on to question whether banning cannabis in the first place was a big mistake, yes, and touches upon the reefer madness claims that cannabis causes psychotic disorders. It doesn't. All issues that aren't dissimilar to the issues that we in America face daily in the developing cannabis industry. And so I guess if arguably more liberal countries are facing bureaucratic issues like we are, maybe we shouldn't get it too up in arms when we criticize how slow and how messy the rollout of American cannabis legalization has been. But should we? America's supposed to be the top dog when it comes to this whole democracy and rule of law thing, Jason. The whole reason that we're seeing this global movement take place is because we took the lead. So I would argue that since foreign ally countries like Germany specifically state that they're forming their laws after being influenced by the Americans and the Canadians, especially since they took our lead on the whole bum-ass war on drugs thing, it's more imperative that we get it right and pressure our lawmakers to listen to what the people are saying and not the bureaucrats. This is the only true way that we will ever have weed for the people. But those are just my thoughts. I'd like to hear everybody else on this one. I'm Rico Lamitte, the dopest dad on the street for High at 9 News.
Man, Rico, I'll tell you what. I do believe that Germany is the largest country in the EU and is really like the steerer of the ship for that organization. So I'm hoping to see some more progress within the European Union in regards, or maybe even possibly a whole dissolving the whole European Union, and then Germany can just kind of do its thing. But I'm really interested to hear what Jenny Beth has to say about this, because she was just recently out there in Germany at a conference, as well as Sohum, who was also just recently in Germany.
Yeah, I mean, it was really interesting. The conference was in Frankfurt, and it was really a great time to chair a couple of days. It was a different conference. It was a think tank, so we definitely discussed a lot of these things, and there was very two distinct sides, right? So that we heard from the people who are head of the organization that controls these clubs that are to open, and kind of the growers co-ops. And then we heard from a gentleman who is very passionate about medical only use, and that it should be treated like a pharmaceutical product, which is disappointing because no one wants to buy their weed from Pfizer. But they
or Canada,
right? Or Canada. They showed a slide of a High Times thing, and they were like, a rap artist was using their name to promote Canada. Yes, that happens, and that's fine. It's not a one size fits all solution, and I think Germany is maybe hopefully not veering to the side of being more pharmaceutical. I think there's a lot of opportunities with import into Germany, so that could open up a really large and robust international market. So I'd like to see them kind of actually follow through with these things that they've passed, and I don't see a lot of movement in that regard.
What do you think, Sohum?
Yeah, and I mean, it depends on, I was going to say, it depends on where it's happening, too. So I just spent about a week in Bavaria, in Munich, Munich being the largest city and most popular city in Bavaria, and it's really packed right now. I'm sure you saw it in Frankfurt, too, Jenny Beth, with the European Championships happening right now, and Germany being the host country. A couple things I noticed. First of all, right? Football, yes, that's right. And I'm wearing my German national team kit today, so perfect time for these stories. One thing I noticed, there is overall a lot more normalization happening from the hemp-derived cannabinoids. You see little vending machines everywhere outside of a tobacco shop where you can buy Delta-8 and CBD and CBG and CBN products. In a mountain town in Austria. So they have these things called e-kiosk, which is basically an employeeless store. There's just a bunch of vending machines that's open 24/7. In a mountain town in Austria, I went and I found one where they had all sorts of hemp-derived cannabinoids that you could just buy out of a vending machine 24 hours a day. So I think that is showing that even in more conservative parts of Austria and Germany,
I don't know.
Wait, what was that?
I have no clue what that was. Neither does Millie.
Interesting.
I don't know.
Was that the Hawk Tua girl?
That must have been the Hawk Tua girl. That has to have been her.
But yeah, so that was one thing I noticed. The other thing was, I went to a match for the Euros at Bayern Munich Stadium, the Allianz Arena. It was a Romania-Ukraine match, a group stage. The whole time we were there, me and my cousin's husband were trying to find some cannabis, knowing that it had just become legal for adult use. Unfortunately, there's no access points right now for recreational. It's all medical only. As we got out of the train, it was about a 10 or 15 minute walk from the train station to the football stadium. And we noticed these three guys in front of us, pull out some pre-rolls and start smoking them. So we were like, yo, where'd you get that? Can we get some? He showed us his medical card and basically the packaging, and it comes from a pharmacy, basically a dispensary. It's not the same pharmacy where you buy your other medicine, but it was some quality cannabis. He just broke us off a 10 sack, and we rolled up real quick and walked up to the stadium. Yeah, I mean, hey.
Is it like a dime bag, or
it's a dime bag? It's a dime bag. I gave him €10 and he gave me a handful of weed. It's an old school dime bag.
Interesting.
But yeah, so we got to smoke that on the way up. He was basically telling us that there are specific zones where the police will crack down on public consumption, but for the most part, it's not really too enforced. We also met a bartender who hooked us up with a pre-roll one night. We went out to play pool at a bar near the university. And he was saying that I don't believe that they have any access points in Munich proper. You have to go outside of the city to go to one of the licensed pharmacies there. So I think it'll be interesting. Bavaria is definitely on the more conservative side. I heard that from every person that I talked to about cannabis, that they might be the last state in Germany to actually approve these social cannabis clubs. But we'll see, we'll see what happens. I think there is a lot of opportunity there. And the fact that you see vending machines just on the side of the road, walking up the sidewalk, and marijuana logos everywhere. Oh, one last thing that I noticed that I thought was pretty interesting. At the airport, so in German airports, they have these little rooms that you can go to smoke cigarettes or vape or whatever. On the door to the smoking lounge in the Munich airport, after customs, after security, after immigration, they had a giant sign on the front of the smoking lounge that says you cannot smoke or vape marijuana here, which the fact that
did
they
you take
even
a
have
picture?
to do that. I sure did. I got it. I can send it to the chat.
Send it over to me on a text if you can. We'll see if we can get this up.
You. So those are some of my thoughts. My story today is also about Germany and the social club. So we'll get back to talking about cannabis in Germany a little later for sure.
All right, we'll try.
How hypocritical is that you're allowed to for a country that is championing medical use and all of that? Then they're telling you can inhale or consume poison, but you can't take your medicine at the airport.
Yeah, maybe that's the next step of normalization they have, or maybe there's going to come to a point where they have separate lounges just for cannabis.
They're not going to do that.
I'm not really sure, but
that's dreaming.
We'll see.
That's dreaming. I don't
know.
Here's what I think is probably the most important question of the day in regards to this. Jenny Beth, you were in Frankfurt, Germany, correct?
I was.
Did you while you were there, did you partake in any Franks while you were there, better known as glizzies here in America?
I was on Glizzy Tour 2024. I went from Columbia to Denver to Chicago to Frankfurt. Yeah, Glizzy Tour 2024. Of course I did.
Glizzy Tour 2024. Eating.
Yeah, more glizzies.
More glizzies.
And
look
you
at
spoke
that.
to me.
Getting
You were on
busy
FaceTime
with
me when
more
I was in those little
glizzies.
smoking rooms, remember? And it was so small. I had to, get out.
What kind of activities are you on this?
Hold on. Well, the other question is, would she consider a Vienna sausage a glizzy?
No, that's a weenie.
Okay, fair enough.
So what's the difference between a weenie and a glizzy? Go.
The size.
The size.
I thought it was more about the motion.
And the servings. You know what I mean? There's
the serving side, the dosage, basically.
Yeah, the dosage of wiener that you get with your glizzy is different than that of a Vienna sausage.
I mean, I don't eat meat, but I think Vienna sausages are pretty big.
No, they're not.
No, they're little.
They're little mini
little
things. They
can.
come in like a little short can, like a tuna can.
They're poverty snacks.
Or is that just in
Poverty snacks?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's an American thing. I didn't see any mini sausages when I was in Vienna.
Yeah, German portions of food are fucking huge.
Well, I mean, they're from Vienna.
Yeah, but I think that's just American people calling that a Vienna sausage, because I did not see any.
So you're saying it's a slight at the people of Vienna? Is that what you're telling me? That the American people are just over here clowning on food?
No, it's interesting. That's interesting because Vienna was just named the most desirable place to live in the world.
Oh,
That's
wow.
what I'm saying,
Okay.
Rico.
I can see that, honestly. I was there for 3 days before we went up to the mountains, and Vienna was a very, very cool, laid back place. We were there for their Pride Parade. It was a party. It was a good time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, their
Maybe we should stop believing everything that we see on these videos because Vienna is so desirable to live there. Then maybe it's not size that matters.
Interesting.
Maybe not. I mean, listen, you were there for Pride. Never mind.
Speaking of which, Philip Zimmerman says in the chat, he says something about glizzy makes me jizzy. And on that, we're going to go to a commercial and we're going to be right back.
Oh man, that was weird. Hey, you America. Do I look like Sean Connery? Good morning, America. Saman Razani coming to you live from sunny Los Angeles, California with the one and only highest host, Mr. Jason Beck, smoking on the best weed in the world. Did you know that we have an audio-only version of our podcast? You can find it on Apple, Google, Amazon, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. No excuses in 2024. If you haven't checked us out, check it out now. And also, check out what the Prophet's doing in 2024.
Up next, it is the man who is always the highest Republican in every room that he steps into, known for smoking the best weed in the world, and also for, his love of imperialisms.
Imperialism? Really?
Yeah. Republican imperialism. That's what we're headed into right now.
Stop the cap. You're just gaslighting him like Sotomayor. Stop it.
Just saying.
Stop it. Stop the ridiculous.
Jason, you would love old Vienna, like 1930s Vienna.
Yeah, he would.
I probably would.
Yeah.
Probably would. Sure. Whatever
there it
you
is.
guys say. I mean, you guys are going to believe whatever you believe anyway, regardless of anything I say, so who cares? But let me tell you something about New York, you guys. That's right, because a former state authority head tried to score kickbacks as part of a disastrous, predatory program meant to help disadvantaged people set up cannabis shops, a new lawsuit alleges. That's right. Reuben McDaniel, the ex-chief of the Dormitory Authority of the state of New York, rejected a multi-million-dollar deal to install security cameras in cannabis dispensaries last year because he and his cronies were upset they wouldn't be able to siphon off enough taxpayer money from the agreement, an Illinois-based firm claims in its Manhattan Supreme Court lawsuit. In quotes, Dancy agents determined through internal correspondence that they were unsatisfied with the potential profits that they would be entitled to from the illegal cutoff of the NY projects that they were attempting to negotiate. The lawsuit says Reuben McDaniel, the former head of a state construction finance arm, is accused in a new lawsuit of trying to score kickbacks. James Kevium suit is tied to the state's troubled pot legalization program and the plaintiffs, America Safe Cities, and its COO Tom. Hold on, I'm gonna have to start this over. We need everything. Those lines, Millie, those lines have to be spaced. Otherwise, it's not gonna work right. So hold on a second, guys. I apologize. Give me 1 second. U.S. District Judge Mark Mastroianni, an Obama appointee, ruled that the plaintiffs have standing to sue, but the dismissing the lawsuit in order applied the same analysis that the Supreme Court did when it addressed the issue in 2005 in Gonzalez versus Raich. Oh, son of a bitch! I apologize, you guys.
You got it, Jace.
I know. I apologize, you guys.
This is what happens when you smoke the best weed in the world. It's all right.
No. I just, I'm gonna start over from the top, you guys. I apologize. It's my bad. A former New York Authority chief sought kickbacks from predatory program meant to help disadvantaged people set up cannabis shops, the suit says. A former state authority head tried to score some kickbacks as part of a disastrous predatory program meant to help disadvantaged people set up cannabis shops, a new lawsuit alleges. Reuben McDaniel, the ex-chief of the Dormitory Authority of the state of New York, rejected a multi-million-dollar deal to install security cameras in cannabis dispensaries last year because he and his cronies were upset they wouldn't be able to siphon off enough taxpayer money from the agreement, an Illinois-based firm claims in its Manhattan Supreme Court lawsuit. In a quote, Dancy agents determined through internal correspondence that they were unsatisfied with the potential profits that they would be entitled to from the illegal cut of the New York projects that they were attempting to negotiate, the lawsuit reads. The plaintiffs, America Safe Cities, and its CEO, Thomas Boiling, contended in court documents that McDaniels and Dancy agents said the firm would receive a $100 million no-bid contract to install surveillance systems at more than 300 cannabis dispensaries, as well as SUNY and CUNY campuses. McDaniel, a former Governor Andrew Cuomo appointee, quietly left the agency last year, and the authority is the the state's Facilities, Finance, and Construction Authority, according to its LinkedIn page, and the lawsuit is only the latest black eye for it. Dancy and Governor Kathy Hochul had previously been criticized for signing off on a fundraising agreement with a private equity firm to help provide financing for people convicted of drug offenses to set up cannabis dispensaries throughout the state's Cannabis Social Equity Fund. And the fund ended up charging prospective attendees exorbitantly high, arguably predatory interest rates on loans backed by the state based on massively overinflated projections on how much income they would generate. According to the bombshell reporting from the city, Hochul's office ignored red flags raised by her own cannabis regulatory agency about the Dancy Fund. The new lawsuit also targets Emery Alexander, a consultant who connected McDaniel and Bowling as early as 2021 with over a year before the equity fund's first dispensary would even open, you guys. It alleges that Alexander worked as McDaniel's liaison and designated agent between 2021 and 2023. At the same time, a LinkedIn page appearing to belong to Alexander lists himself as president of American Safe Cities for 8 months beginning in October of 2022. It's unclear exactly what role Alexander may have played in the alleged scheme, but Danzy does not comment on pending litigation, a Danzy rep wrote in a response to questions from the Post. And Bowling did not respond to requests for comment either. And Alexander could not be reached for comment. And a rep for the State Inspector General's office said he won't confirm or deny the existence of any investigations, as it is the office's protocol. McDaniel quietly stepped down last year and has since taken over as managing director at the Alice L. Walton Foundation, and the foundation did not respond to a query from the Post either, you guys. Well, at least these guys are taking a page out of the Pop Brothers at Law and knowing how to shut the F up. But nonetheless, this whole thing stinks and reeks of corruption in my mind, and I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about this. This is Jason Beck for the High at 9 News. What do y'all think about this?
I think that was a hell of a recovery, Jason. Good story.
Thank you.
You just got excited about that one. That's a big one.
Well, I mean, New York is the gift that keeps on giving.
Corruption from a New York real estate developer probably brought back some PTSD, huh, Jason?
Oh, I see what you did there, Sohum. That was cute.
Artificially inflating projected profits to get favorable terms from
yeah, but but they were gonna be siphoning all this money from social equity applicants and forcing them to pay these exorbitantly high interest rates of the state's money at that.
Something similar happened here in Los Angeles, and I believe that gentleman is now the head of our airport commission. Pay attention to what's going on in your cities, guys. Like, the social equity programs have time after time after time been taken advantage of and been used as like a siphon fund for all these corrupt people and these, upper middle class, yada you, whatever, shouldn't be here kind of folks. So, like, stop stealing from social equity. It's not that fucking hard. And the cities should care. If they don't care about the programs and the people they're supposed to protect, then they should give a fuck about their own money being stolen, because it is government funds that are being siphoned off.
Yeah, I mean, here's what comes up for me.
Oh,
right?
boy, here we go.
When they announced this they announced this $100 million fund, and the first thing I said is, where's the money and where is it coming from? And along the way, they suffered from a pronounced lack of transparency, which can probably not be entirely attributed to Ruben McDaniels or whatever this gentleman's name is. And with this alleged approach to how this opportunity, this funding event was handled, as a politician or a policymaker or somebody who's installed in their office, I don't know whether he gets a promotion and this is business as usual, or he gets his fingernails removed one at a time and ends up in prison.
Ooh, that hurts.
What I would like to see is omnidirectional accountability. And so as long as they're banging the drum about the bodegas and all the other stuff, let's make sure that we are also taking a few scalps along the way and making sure that politicians are held accountable. If this is true, I'm not surprised, because this program and the people who've been responsible for executing the rollout have been incompetent at best and potentially compromised at worst. I think that I'd like to make sure this plays out in a court and not in the court of public opinion, but it's hard for me not to believe that where there's smoke, there's fire.
Rico, you know what? I think I just cracked the whole case, Rico. I think we just cracked the whole case with this story. So basically, Chris Webber was the one that was supposed to provide the money for this fund. And I bet you that when Chris Webber's people were doing the due diligence and getting the money ready for this whole fund, they saw all these predatory deals and then they backed out. And that's the reason that this fund was never funded in the first place. And they were just trying to make Chris Webber be the scapegoat for their utter failures because he didn't put up the cash.
Well, if it was never funded, does that even qualify as a fund?
Well, they said they filed the paperwork for it.
It identifies as a fund. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Never mind if there's any money involved.
I see what you did there. I like that. I like that, Yarrow. That was good.
It sounds like it's an account. It's not a fund.
Well, we are going over the account of what this may have looked like, but the thing that was really challenging to us, because we were running at retail locations at this point in New York, is the first thing we said is like, okay, how much money is there? Okay, how much money is going to each of these doors? Okay, so now you're telling us that you're going to raise money, but then you're going to give the money to the recipients, but then the recipients have to spend it on real estate that is owned by New York. So you're giving us money to spend money with you. And then it was, okay, well, no, you're not going to have to spend this money on real estate that's owned by New York, but you're going to have to spend it on real estate where we allocate this money to you. And by the way, we're going to determine things like the signage and all these other things. And then it was, okay, we're not going to do that, but you're going to have to spend it with our approved vendor list. And so along the way with all of these changing, shifting iterations, there was always these massive strings attached. It wasn't like block grant funding, and there wasn't enough flexibility in the proposed program details to allow entrepreneurs to make better choices, not so great choices, fail. First, it was going to be a grant, then it was going to be a loan. And every single time the story changes, and maybe it's just because I'm raising teenagers, but every single time the story changes, I don't believe the person who's talking. Because they never, ever, ever stayed on script, and they never, ever, ever said one thing and stuck with it.
I'll tell you what. I hope that the New Jersey Cannabis Board tweets something about this story.
It shows the need to have public, either a more robust public-private relationship around funding mechanisms to support this industry, or we need to fall back on the private businesses that are already lending unsecured funds into the space. And sure, they're making their interest rate, but compared with what these buffoons were trying to do, interest is not inherently a nefarious pursuit. And so there are very limited non-secured funding options in the space. We need to see more of that. And if government can't solve it, private enterprise can.
Or
yeah,
burn it down.
Oh God! What do you have any thoughts on this, Dale?
Not on National Clam Day. You don't burn anything on Clam Day.
Yes, I do.
It's also Chocolate Wafer Day. You know what I'm saying?
It's just difficult to watch our industry being a cash cow for so many crooks. Because they're everywhere. And I've been in the presence of politicians that are asking for shit that they know they're not supposed to get. And it's just hard. And that bucket, they say, oh, the bucket has some leaks in it, so take money out to people. You know, in this case, we get raped to fill the bucket, and then it's a sieve, and it goes out to a lot of people. And the industry is the one that's suffering here. And it's just disturbing to watch how much we are targeted by nefarious people who have a smile on their face and want to shake your hand, and what they really have is some lube and want to bend you over.
Yes, they do. In response to Jenny Beth's comment earlier, when she said, like, how hard is it not to rip off social equity applicants? Like, I would actually argue it seems like it's harder not to, because we're seeing that happen on every level in every state that tries to apply social equity.
That's right.
I would love to set up an auditing system and go through these programs, because God knows I've worked with enough of these applicants and got them out of these predatory agreements. I would like to just somebody reach out to me. Let me come audit your jurisdiction. Fine. Let me look at these contracts. I want to see.
I have been the recipient of many six-figure rounds of grant funding as a verified social equity applicant. And Every single time somebody propositions me with something that doesn't pass a sniff test, and every single time I say 3 to 5 years from now, there is going to be a massive audit of these programs. Somebody's head is going to roll. Somebody's going to go to jail, and it's not going to be me.
Well, I mean, let's be honest. These contracts require you to submit certain documents, right? So if you're submitting something and you are saying that you're not in day-to-day control of this business, you're just, giving them some money and a small minority partner, and you're allowing all the things that the law says that should be happening to happen, and you're not doing that, it's called fraud. There's a fucking word for that. Your head should roll, and you should go to jail for it. You should at least have to pay these people back, give them back their business interest, and get the fuck out of the industry you don't belong in.
I don't know. The leadership that this country has, I don't know if that's real.
Well, that's because Joe Biden's in the president's office. That's why.
No, I'm talking about your boy Trump.
Example. He doesn't set a good
I'm talking about your boy Trump. There's zero accountability anymore. There is no such thing as law.
Trump is the most accountable person because he's been persecuted more than anybody else. So you can't
persecuted?
Really. Yeah, persecuted.
You're confusing prosecuted and persecuted.
Yeah,
persecuted and prosecuted. Both of those things. But we're not going to go into
I
that.
just think it's sad by saying
the social equity though, real
a
quick.
lot of these equity.
Go ahead, Sohum.
Go, so I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, I think it's something we've discussed on this show, and I've said repeatedly. From my experience, from what I've seen, the places that achieve true equity and access to licenses for people.
Whoa, what happened to you, Sohum? Where'd you go?
I think I got muted.
There we go.
That was weird.
He was persecuted.
I know.
Jake Tapper got you.
Hunter Biden.
Trying to silence my
married, have you?
But no, I was saying that I think places like Oklahoma and New Mexico that have reduced their application fees, done away with license caps. Well, Oklahoma is starting to walk that back, but during their initial wave of licensing, they've done more for creating equitable access to licenses than places that create these bulky $100 million social equity program, which really are just opportunities for already disadvantaged people to be taken more advantage of. So I think I think the more social equity programs that we see, the more we see why that is not the solution to helping people get access to the industry who have been harmed by the war on drugs.
That's right. I mean, I think a lot of these social equity deals are kind of like Joe Biden's tan. It only is on the face.
Oh, boy. And on that, we're going to roll right into attorney Dale Schaefer. He's the founder of Armada Law Practice and at one point in time did some time for a cannabis crime. Here to show you how to piss up a rope and how to be a crazy Tio Loco. That's right, as none other than attorney Dale Schaefer.
Good morning, and thank you, Jason. One more day of the world being full of shit. Okay, now my story today comes out of a federal court in Massachusetts where 4 cannabis companies have sued Merrick Garland and directly challenge the case of Raich versus Gonzalez from 2005. Now, what happened in court was predictable, and they got their case dismissed, but the court found they had standing to bring it. They just were not going to overturn Raich at a trial court level. And what it looks like is they went shopping for the right circumstance, the right forum, and they went in directly after Raich, and they expected to get dismissed at the trial level. And I'm hoping that they put in all the evidence they needed to challenge Raich on all 4 corners as they go up the ladder through the appellate courts. And this may be that case I've been talking about, that if it gets in front of the Supreme Court and we haven't had other action taken on cannabis in the Controlled Substances Act, this could overturn Raich. Now, one of the problems that we face in this industry right now is based in Raich, which was the 2005 case where Angel was going to grow it in her backyard and use it in her house, and the court dusted off this 50, 60-year-old case from the New Deal era that gave the federal government Commerce Clause authority to regulate non-commercial intrastate activity. Now, under our Constitution, the Commerce Clause allows Congress to regulate commerce amongst the several states. I don't care how you torture that word. It's not non-commerce inside a state. Okay. So what they did in Wickard versus Filburn way back in 1942 was a very progressive court allowed the federal government on the Commerce Clause to get into your personal business under Commerce Clause authority. And that has been the law ever since that. Now, right now, there's a lot of attention in our Supreme Court. A lot of people have their panties in a knot over a conservative majority that's 6-3 right now. And people are finally beginning to pay attention to the political nature of our Supreme Court. What is happening is the pendulum is swinging back the period before the New Deal, back during FDR, when the nation was really starving and they were afraid people were going to go to the streets and overturn everything. So they began to pass legislation and stretch areas of federal law and federal authority on the Constitution. The conservative courts in those days said, no, we're not going to do it. Now, up until FDR won his second term, the Supreme Court was just slapping down all of their New Deal legislation. So you don't have authority for this. You exceeded, the Congress exceeded its authority. The president doesn't have executive authority to this. They were just slapping the shit out of them right and left. But when FDR got reelected, he threatened to pack the court, put in legislation. We're going to increase the court, double it basically. I'm going to get to appoint a whole new court basically. And what they called the four horsemen, the four conservatives, are going to be outnumbered. Well, there was four conservatives and three they called the three musketeers were progressive, and there was two in the middle, and one of them had consistently voted with the conservatives until this court packing thing, and for whatever reason, I don't know, he ever explained or ever understood, he changed his tune and voted to support and started supporting consistently New Deal era legislation. So what happened was very progressive Supreme Court cases came out. Some of them needed to come out, but I'm talking Brown versus Board of Education. There was a lot of others that just needed to be done. But the extension of the Commerce Clause really went a long distance, and it's been reined in a bit since then with like domestic violence and guns. Like there's no Commerce Clause authority for that kind of shit. So Wickard versus Filburn is still out there. And this guy, Filburn, was a farmer. They claimed he grew too much wheat, and he was using it to make his own bread and feed his own cattle instead of that. It's not commercial. It's not going out of the state. And the court said if your cumulative effects of this have a substantial impact on interstate commerce, we're going to allow this, okay? Now, along comes Raich, where they tried to challenge the Commerce Clause authority over marijuana. And the Raich court dusted this off and said, well, here's authority from way back when to allow us to control intrastate non-commercial activity under the Commerce Clause, okay? And at that point, 2004, 2005, marijuana legalization efforts and decriminalization efforts were nothing like we have today. And I've mentioned many times what Clarence Thomas had to say, and he pulled out the 10th Amendment. He said, this is clearly within the 10th Amendment. The federal government stepped over the line here, and I'm pretty sure with the 6 conservative majority we have right now, we can get that question back in front of the Supreme Court, whether they have Commerce Clause authority, given that it's a higgledy-piggledy now prosecution system across the country, whether this is going to stand up. Now, that is the initial challenge. And as you know, we've got rescheduling to Schedule 3 in the works right now. And you all talked about this new case, the Loper Bright Enterprises that took away the Chevron deference doctrine. Now, what I'm curious about, and we're going to have to watch and see how this happens, is that case, which takes away deference from these administrative agencies, whether that's going to have an impact and in what that impact might be over the DEA and this rescheduling activities here. Because they've just turned the apple cart over. And I don't think anybody really understands how this is going to affect these administrative agencies. The DEA is one of the notorious asshole administrative agencies in our government, especially when it comes to marijuana. They have drugged their feet. They have forced you to go to court to just get approval to take the next step. And right now, we're going back to the what called the Administrative Practices Act, passed just after World War II. And they're going to hold these administrative agencies to only the power they're given directly by Congress, and everything else has to go to the courts. So this is going to be an interesting pathway through marijuana over the next 1 to 2 years. And I don't have any predictions of how it's going to turn out. It's just going to be, an old-fashioned shit show from all different directions. I'm hoping that we can get this question in front of the Thomas Court, or the Roberts Court now, and have the court say, no, the definition of marijuana is not met in Schedule 1, so therefore it's removed from Schedule 1. That'll force the federal government to shit or get off the pot. You got to do something now, and it's going to have to be Congress that does it. It's not going to be an administrative agency. Oh, we're going to start this discussion and continue it along the line. I'm going to throw it back to all of you. What do you think about this nonsense going forward?
So just to give some reference on this, this is the David Boyce case that you're referring to, correct, Dale? Yes. And we spoke about this. We did cover this story yesterday also too. But this story is so important. I'm so glad that you covered this today, Dale. So are you telling me that basically because of their decision, and this is probably why the lawyer from Boyce's side was not upset with the decision that the judge made, but that now, because of the decisions that they just made, now the Supreme Court could take up this whole new argument, and it would just totally throw cannabis out of the schedule, is what you're telling me.
Well, yeah. And the court is definitely defining the separation of powers in this country right now. That's what the Chevron doctrine being taken away was all about, is that Congress has the power to set the law. And if they give an administrative agency specific instructions on what they're supposed to do with this law, that's going to be allowed through the administrative process. But for everything else that might not have been in the law that's uncertain, you're going to have to take it to real court. Okay, where you have juries and you have judges who will bring in multiple experts.
I'm all about that.
Not let these agencies say, well, our guy says it's this way. After the COVID-19 debacle, I don't think anybody trusts these administrative agencies anymore.
Nope, that's true.
And we're seeing the pendulum swing back to what the court's position was prior to the New Deal, where the court decided the law, the Congress made the laws, and the president's job was to execute the laws. And they're defining that. People are all pissed off about it. I can understand in a lot of ways, but that's where this pendulum is swinging back to.
So it's getting back to our actual roots on how this country was founded, is what you're telling me, Dale.
No, that's not what he's saying. You're spinning.
I love you so much.
I'm sorry. I suffer from truth Tourette's. I'm diagnosed yesterday.
Let you tell it.
So let's talk about those three branches of government and the checks and balances and the concentration of power. Does pendulum between different branches during different eras of this country. But this exceedingly concentrated power in the federal judiciary that has happened in the most recent period of time is not something that you can look back and say, well, that's always how it's been. Nor can we say that the founding fathers expected the Supreme Court justices to be devoid of ethics requirements, transparency requirements, reporting requirements around gifts provided, or this whole notion that they would be above the law themselves, much less anointing other people as being above the law.
That's your take on it.
I can tell you, Yarrow, that going back to Bush v. Gore, it was really, the bell rung really hard for me that this is a political institution.
Yep.
Are interested in the results, and they will stretch what the Constitution says as far as they need to. And in some instances, that may be okay. In other instances, it's definitely not. We have this thing called the 10th Amendment, and the states and the people, we control all power unless the federal government's specifically given it. And that's where a lot of this needs to go back to. And it's what scares people in reproductive rights, okay? because we've seen some draconian shit come out of these states. But the substantive due process issue is where we're going to see a lot of battles here. That's basically equity in due process, not procedural, notice and opportunity to be heard. Is there some fundamental right involved here? And they really take their microscopes out to look for fundamental rights. And I think this court is saying, no, those rights that you're arguing are not fundamental in the Constitution. And so we're going to see pendulum swings here in multiple areas. And this is just going to be one. These administrative law judges have way too much to say. About things Congress should be saying about.
I totally agree with that.
Speaking about my pendulum swinging, if you have to take a magnifying glass or a microscope out to see my fundamental rights, then you're looking at the wrong part, wrong side.
You're looking at Vienna.
Yeah, Vienna, not glitzy.
Oh boy, oh boy. Any thoughts on this?
I'm gonna stand up to his Vienna slander. I was just.
It's only slander if it's not true.
All right. Well, I don't have enough data to make that assertion yet. But as a city, I will back up. I will back up and defend Vienna here.
I'm getting a tattoo that says "My glizzy is glitzy," and
I love it.
We'll see who joins me.
I co-sign that.
That's cute.
That's
cute.
Ain't no Vienna in my sausage.
Oh man, you guys, we got to go to a commercial. We're gonna be right back. The Control Tower from Highly Educated has perfected the dab. Utilizing the concept of thin film evaporation, you can waste none of it and taste all of it. The micro texture of the SE pillar increases nucleation at elevated temperatures. And with the tower propelling at 2,600 RPMs, it's certainly the most efficient dab experience to date. The Control Tower from Highly Educated. All right, stop whatever you're doing. Make sure that you hit that like button. I know we'll appreciate it, you'll appreciate it, and YouTube will appreciate it. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you have not subscribed already, and all of the articles that we cover on today's show you can read directly on our website at www.high9news.com.
I'm Jason Beck, and this is Smoky Vanilla. And if you want to feel as good as I look, then you need to get a stretch and smoke with Smoky Vanilla.
Hi, I'm Smoky Vanilla. I have my bachelor's degree in kinesiology, and I'm a sports massage therapist and stretch coach. I focus mostly on individuals that are in sport with chronic pain or injury. I love to intuitively create and customize a session based on the individual that I'm working with. We'll go over a few postural assessments, work together to create a wellness journey based on the health history, past injuries, or anything still affecting you today. And we'll get you back on your feet right away with less pain.
We're about to stretch, and then we're gonna smoke, because we're gonna get on our stretch and smoke. If you want to feel as good as I look, then you need to come on down and get a stretch and smoke with none other than Smoky Vanilla.
And we're back, Rico.
Oh, yeah. This Austin, Texas-based correspondent's been in the regulated cannabis tech and data lane for over a decade now and is back in the U.S. after a rather eventful third leg of the Glizzy Tour 2024. Sohum Shaw.
Yes.
Well done. Well done.
Oh, that's good, Rico.
Making a shirt,
Good.
Sohum.
All right. Thank you for that amazing introduction, Rico. Today, we're going to bring it back to Germany and talk more about their legalization law and how it's panning out. German cannabis clubs can now officially begin applying to launch operations, the latest step in the rollout of the country's marijuana legalization law. While local officials began accepting applications for prospective marijuana co-ops on Monday, it may still be some time before members can start obtaining cannabis under the country's legalization law, with individual states free to set certain rules for the facilities. Sounds familiar. It became legal in Germany for adults to possess and cultivate marijuana for personal use in April, but there's been no means of legally obtaining cannabis otherwise. The social clubs, which can each have up to 500 members and sell up to 50 grams of marijuana per person each month, represent the latest iteration of the law. Cannabis social clubs are an important part of the fight against the black market, Carmen Veg, a lawmaker with the Social Democratic Party, said in a social media post on Monday, according to a translation. Even if you don't have a particularly green thumb, a CSC is certainly a good alternative. Green MP Kristen Kapper-Gonter called the social club portion of the legalization law taking effect another milestone of reason-guided policy, adding that it represents an elementary step towards curbing the black market. Advocates and stakeholders are still awaiting the government's plan for the second pillar of the law, but it's expected to provide for a broader commercial sales model. Last month, German lawmakers also approved a series of changes to the country's marijuana legalization law, imposing restrictions related to impaired driving and giving states more authority to set limits on cannabis cultivation within their borders. The amendments were a result of an earlier agreement between federal government and legislators that was made in order to avoid a months-long delay in the implementation of the law. One of the changes gives states greater flexibility to set restrictions on cultivation at co-ops that are now able to start dispensing cannabis to members. The regional governments will be able to impose limits on the size of the co-op's canopies. In Bavaria, for example, the health minister said that the state's policies will be as restrictive as possible, with clubs not expected to open until this fall at the earliest. A separate measure that federal lawmakers adopted last month sets a per se THC limit for impaired driving. The legislation, which has proved more controversial given a lack of scientific evidence supporting the efficacy of such policies, makes it so drivers would be considered impaired if they have more than 3.5 nanograms per milliliter of THC in their blood. The amendment also bans driving if a person has used both marijuana and alcohol, regardless of the amount. Meanwhile, Health Minister Karl Lauterbach, who has led the government's cannabis legalization efforts, told members of the Bundestag in December that we are currently examining the commercial sales plan as a part of the second pillar. But with legalization in effect, there has been increased pressure to expedite the process. There's more information that you can read the full article. Thanks to Kyle Yeager at Marijuana Moment for reporting on this. But yeah, so sounds similar to a lot of what we've experienced in the U.S. States have a lot of authority in determining how they want both the social club side and the commercial side to roll out. And we see some of the more conservative states like Bavaria delaying their implementation or making it more restrictive, which seems like they have taken a page from the U.S. legalization playbook, with the exception of having some federal approval there. But yeah, this is Sohum with High at 9 News. Let's kick it back to the team and see what everyone's thoughts are on this.
It sounds like they're getting
incremental.
Oh, go ahead, Dale.
Incremental steps are what we're seeing here. And as soon as the average person realizes that smoking weed isn't causing, society to fall apart, they start challenging these stories they've been given, the dogmas, the orthodoxies, and marijuana prohibition falls apart. That's what we're seeing all over the world. You're going to see conservatives. We have them here, Kevin Savett and Sam and other people like that. The average person in the United States looks at this and goes, come on. This is no worse than drinking alcohol. You do it responsibly. Why should you be throwing people in jail? I think Germany's moving towards that. And many other parts of Europe are also, because they've bought the stigmatizing language over the last century. And as soon as you put it in front of people that this really doesn't cause all those problems that they said it was going to cause, okay, now you can't justify the prohibition anymore. And we'll see this continue to move forward. It's going to be a slow process, but at least incrementally, they're moving towards not throwing people in jail for smoking weed.
Sounds like they're pulling people the fuck over. 3,000.
Yeah. 3.5 nanograms is nothing. That makes me nervous having driven out there. Like, I'll probably wake up with more than that in my blood.
Right.
It'd be crazy though, man. Like,
why does that make you nervous?
Intoxicated on the Autobahn going 150. Like,
yeah, like you just don't stop.
Darwinism.
Great advice. Thank you, Jason.
Anytime. Sohum. Anytime. I mean, they let you drive fast out there, Sohum, so I just figure you could probably get away.
Do.
Yeah.
They can pass too, though.
Especially in Vienna.
I mean, even on some of the best highlight reels. You don't really see high-speed chases that often in the EU.
Are you talking about velocity or are you talking about mindset? Because every day in my mind, I'm part of a high-speed chase.
Oh,
wow.
boy. Oh, boy. Rico's constantly trying to chase himself, Rico.
Does that mean you're high and you're chasing a Pinot? What's going on?
Yeah, that's the...
When you got a glizzy, you gotta chase yourself.
Oh, do you watch that glizzy down with the little Pinot? Is that what you're doing? A little Pinot and the glizzy? Yeah.
I see what you're saying. Did you have those photos, Millie? Let's we're gonna show these photos that you had referenced earlier.
Yeah.
Sohum.
So yeah, on the right of the screen where somebody has circled one of these buttons on the vending machine and said "extra chill," which I thought was hilarious. Thank you for that's their legacy market strain reviewer here. Putting their opinion on the machine. But this is actually in Vienna, just on a sidewalk on the outside of a tobacco store. So when it's closed, they have a cigarette machine, and then they have this, I don't know, CBD, CBN, hemp-derived cannabinoid machine. And then the picture on the left is the door to get into the smoking lounge after customs and immigration at Munich International Airport.
Was THCA a thing out there too?
Not as big in Germany. I saw some in Austria. That last picture on the right of the vending machine was it was in the town Zell am See where I was at for a family reunion. It's up in the Austrian Alps, and that's the e-kiosk I was describing, where it's an unmanned store. It's open 24/7. They got vending machines where you can buy snacks, water, beer, wine, whatever you want. And then in the corner, they had this vending machine with some flour and vapes and some edibles and stuff. And the reason I went in there is because they had a big weed leaf on emoji or whatever icon on the window, along with beverages and cigarettes and whatever else you could go in there and buy.
Sounds pretty woke to me, huh, Jason? There's no men in that store.
Well,
I love it.
I just have a couple real questions about this sign and this little area. So I'm assuming that because it specifies cannabis, that you could totally smoke hemp there.
No.
Why not? Yeah, you can. It doesn't distinctify it. It only says cannabis.
This ain't Texas.
I'll be
This ain't
smoking some
Farmville.
THCA in there all day. You know what I mean?
I encourage you to go to Munich and test this theory out, Jason.
When the Germans,
only way to find out.
I have no problem doing this.
Jason
I
Beck.
have no problem
when the
doing
Germans
this.
when the Germans say, "Let me see your papers," they're not talking about your raws, okay? So
I don't smoke raws. I don't smoke raws.
German authorities have a history of persecuting white people too, Jason. Be careful.
I'm not too worried about all this that you guys are trying to gaslight me with all this fear and whatnot. I'm not buying into this.
Can we not use the word gas when we're talking about Germany?
And light up.
I know, Jason. Come on, man.
Just saying.
Too soon.
Just saying. Oh God, you guys are overly sensitive today.
Sensitive, like never mind.
No, sensitive. I'll say it for you. Sensitive like a nipple tip.
Okay, I don't know about all these anatomical references, but I do have one follow-up question.
That's a Jason Beckism. That's a Jason Beckism.
Okay, well, there's a reason why I show up to this show with a shirt on. So anyway, the question for me is this vending machine. Well, I just don't want people to see my piercing. So the vending machine picture.
The belly button?
Oh, man,
Did you guys ever see 300 with that guy who had the big chain that went from his ear to his nose down? Yeah. So anyway, that's how I roll. So the question I have with these vending machines is: are they age restricted? So they're out on the street. Do you have to scan your ID? Can a 14-year-old, if nobody's watching,
they're age restricted. They're age restricted, which is. I mean, one, I wasn't trying to get any hemp-derived cannabinoids, but even if I wanted to try it, I couldn't. And it's the same thing with their cigarette machines. For whatever reason, you have to use a Austrian or a German either debit card or ID. So like even when I tried using my card on there or my driver's license, I wasn't able to scan it. So like, for example, when I was in that mountain town, I was trying to buy a pack of cigarettes out of a vending machine. And I kept trying. I went and finally took out cash because I was like, maybe it's just a cash-only machine. I had to go back and get the bartender from the bar that I was at. I was like, how do I use this machine? He was like, oh, you need like a local debit card, which is, they have some age verification on there, or like an ID. So he had to come and swipe his card, and then I was able to buy stuff out of the machine.
Interesting. Very, very interesting way of
very
utilizing.
efficient too,
Yeah. I'm not mad at that concept.
I'd love to see somebody pissed off because their money got stuck in the machine and start beating the hell out of that thing.
I mean, those things were solid. I don't think you could do that.
I mean,
people don't beat their machines in public in Germany. It's a pretty.
Yeah.
Oh boy,
I'm trying to get chill.
Man,
to beat their Vienna sausage in public.
Mm-hmm. We're gonna roll right into our final commercial. We're gonna be right back. Get ready for the 2X Monster Truck Live Tour, coming to San Bernardino Nos Orange Event Show Speedway on June 22nd, and in Northern California at Watsonville at the Ocean Speedway on June 29th. Make sure you head over to www.number2extremeracingseries.com for all of the tickets for this family fun event. Feel the sparks coming on the bottom right now? Where the brand is? Ah, yes, coming up next, that's right. It's the man who sips Pinot by the beach while being strummed a violin, hearing all the cries from no one in the cannabis space having cash to do cannabis and real estate all in one. That's right, is none other than Mr. Yarrow Kubrin.
Oh, good morning, Hyatt News viewers. Thanks for joining us here Wednesday, July 3rd, right before
How high are you right now?
holiday. How high am I?
Yeah.
Not enough.
Okay.
Not enough for that style of intro, but good enough. My article today is about home grows, which is something that's near and dear to my heart. So without further ado, from Fox9.com news, homegrown marijuana sales legal under Minnesota Constitution lawsuit claims. St. Paul, Minnesota. The timeline for some Minnesota marijuana sales may move up. Retail licenses are still several months away, but a small group of people are hoping a law from the early 1900s gets them in business. The state constitution changed in 1906 to allow us to sell from our gardens or farms without a license after a farmer was punished for selling his homegrown melons. The attorney general is now saying marijuana is a different story. As he recovers from a major surgery, Patrick McClellan still has an easy laugh and an expensive treatment. The 57-year-old has muscular dystrophy and was among Minnesota's first medical patients 9 years ago. He started growing his own supply when the price tag got too high, but that also came with a startup cost of almost $4,000. His crop of 2 pounds recently came in and he wanted to sell some of it. I think it's important to kind of offset the very large costs that home growers are having, McClellan told Fox 9. When it comes to supplying other patients, the new law says you can give away up to 2 ounces of homegrown cannabis, but you can't sell anything without a retail license. McClellan and 3 other men sued, saying Article 13, Section 7 of the state constitution says no license is required for homegrown farms or garden products. The Attorney General's office last week asked a judge to throw out the case. The number one reason they say cannabis plants are not a product of farms or gardens. McClellan says that's absurd. It's like saying that a tomato is not a tomato, he said. We cannot give our lawmakers the ability to tell us that a plant is now not a plant. The AG's office says sales of controlled substances require a license, and anyone growing cannabis has to follow all the rules and regulations in the new law. Plaintiff's attorney Jeff O'Brien agrees his client couldn't sell marijuana to someone under 21, for example, but he says that the state constitution opens to door. But he says the state constitution opens to door. Nah, their typo, not mine. Opens the door for unlicensed sales on a small scale of what's allowed for home growers. We're not talking about someone being able to open up a dispensary or a large growing operation off of 8 plants, 4 of which are flowering, says O'Brien, a lawyer at Chestnut Cambron. O'Brien says he's trying to get clarity without getting someone arrested or fined for illegal sales they believe are actually legal. A judge is expected to rule on the motion to dismiss later this month, but the case is still headed for an appeals court either way. This is Yarrow Kubrin, High at 9 News, Wednesday, July 3rd.
Shout out to the home
in
growers.
California, they said that in the law that marijuana is not an agricultural crop. Legal fiction. It grows in your backyard or in the field, but it's not an agricultural crop because we have a right to farm law here. And it looks like they're I don't know if they have that in that particular state, the right to farm. It sounds like they put in there something like a right to farm. But if I grow it, I can sell it. It's going to be interesting to see how this thing turns out.
I mean, most of the cannabis I've seen does identify as a crop.
Or at least an agricultural commodity.
A plant.
So
but policymakers make up this bullshit and they impose it on us. It's like, you're looking at this thing grow in the ground, but it's not a plant.
Dale, why hasn't someone challenged that law here in California? Because that seems like that would be a easy slam dunk lawsuit to change.
Well, I don't know, because it involves our Controlled Substances Act and prohibitions against selling defined products. I mean, it's not simple. I don't know who's going to fund it because these things don't happen for free.
Exactly.
And that's really a lot of what this turns out to be, is that, if you got a couple extra dollars and you want to go pay lawyers to, roll the dice for you, go ahead.
How much do you think a case like that would cost?
Multiple six figures.
Hundreds of thousands.
Multiple.
I mean, multiple figures. So do you think it's going to be over $500,000?
It would be a Vienna sausage size retainer to get that lawsuit.
No. I
Sure.
just want a real range. You know what I mean? You think it'd be like 200,000 to 500,000, 300,000 to 700,000? Like, what do you think?
2 to 7.
2 to 7.
On how much they fight.
2 to 7.
You're going to get all sorts. Every county and city is going to jump in against you. Okay, you're going to have groups that want to push this going to be on your side, and the more people at the party. I'm an attorney. My worth is my time and my experience, and every time I talk to somebody, I charge a fair amount of money, and I want to get paid. And I have associates and paralegals and other things that work on this, and this justifies a hell of a lot of work. So a couple $100,000 is not hard to imagine. It could go much further than that, depending on how far this actually goes through the system.
Well, and it also depends on what enemies you create along the way, right? So does the League of Cities get involved?
They're going to be involved for sure.
Try to jump into this, because this in our area, the right to farm conveys with it quite a lot of rights for property owners, the need to not have to mitigate odor in the way that cannabis is regulated. If you're a pig farmer in this area, you don't have to worry about the odor that comes off your agricultural activities in the same way that you would if you were a cannabis cultivator. And so, and so when you say, well, what does this cost? It also depends on the approach. Is someone going right to the state level to try to put a stake in the heart of this differentiation, or are they trying it locally someplace where they think they have the greatest chance of having the ruling that they want, and then having it bump up through the process? But this, I'm not against cannabis being treated as an agricultural commodity, but I also recognize that, like wine, like my Pinot, like my grapes, the end product is intoxicating, right? So I believe that grapes are just another agricultural commodity, but that doesn't mean that I think a 12-year-old should be able to sip Pinot with me by the beach.
Well, technically, I think you could argue that because the plants haven't been prepared to smoke, like you can't just go and just walk up to a live cannabis plant and pick a bud off and expect to smoke it. Like, this is not going to work. So therefore, it wouldn't necessarily. I think it could qualify as a similar thing because it has to go through a process just like wine goes through a process until it's in that consumable, intoxicating state.
So you can buy grapes at a farmer's market, right? Are you saying that you should be able to buy undried, uncured cannabis at a farmer's market?
THCA?
I'm just
Well, we know he's not going to
THCA
agree with
flower.
that. We know he's not going to agree with that because that's cutting his nose to spite his face on that.
not really.
It is. You're a retailer, sir.
I'm just saying.
I'm just saying. I mean, I think we have to protect home grow. As long as cannabis is used as a medicinal product and we have patients whose lives depend on it, we need to allow them to make sure that they have access, and that includes growing that at home. And I don't know that I actually agree with you, Yarrow, as much as I enjoy a good Pinot as well. I don't think I want my 11-year-old son anywhere around it.
But you would allow your 11-year-old son around Vienna sausages.
No, because those are not healthy snacks. Those are very high in.
You might choke on it.
A lot of sodium.
My son will
whether
never be
people
caught
like it or
choking on a
not,
Vienna sausage. You better calm down, Rico Lamitte.
Weed that's grown in a personal garden is being sold all over the place. And whether if anybody wants to acknowledge it or not, it's not the trap market, but up where I live, people grow weed up here, and it ain't hard to find it from home grow. And you throw a couple bucks at somebody, they'll probably deliver it to you.
100%.
So, I mean, these are all semantic games that these lawmakers like to play, which is one of the reasons we hate the government so goddamn much. It's like, you know, common sense tells you this is not supposed to be happening, but we're surrounded by things that lack common sense.
Yeah, I think a better approach here would be to create incentives for people that are growing at home to make sure that their product is safe before they're potentially giving it or distributing it however they can, right? Whether it's putting liability on them for if they're distributing contaminated weed or having them carry some small amount of insurance or something like that. I don't know what the right answer is. And don't get me wrong, I hate insurance companies, so I don't know, but that's the right answer. But I'm saying do something from a policy perspective that's not prohibitive. Instead, try to incentivize people that are growing at home to make sure they're doing it in a safe and responsible manner.
Yeah, and leave it up to like our DCC. They wait till other people sue West Coast Cure before they decide we're going to pull this shit off the market. Even though you know
hold on. We're going into that story next. I think that's the perfect transition, Rico. What do you think?
I think it's a great transition, Jason.
Okay. You want to introduce Jenny Beth?
Absolutely.
We're all waiting
Coming
on
to
you
the stage
now.
next. Coming to the stage next is the well-known and respected cannabis entrepreneur, the boss lady herself, known for putting Jason in his place.
Yeah, right.
On stage.
It's crazy.
And also back from Glizzy Tour 2024, where she's been known to spew out more mayonnaise packages than a little bit. Jenny Beth Dills.
All right. That got weird really fucking quick, but okay. Thanks, Rico. I'm going to start this out a little differently. I am going to read you guys a story, but I want to be able to talk about everything, so I'm going to do this backwards. I'm going to let you hear the response first.
What's up, everybody? It's your boy Jay Cures, and I hope you're having a great day. Now, me, I'm having a wild one. I can't even make this shit up. There was an LA Times article that came out a little while ago against us and a bunch of the top brands in the space. Total bullshit, by the way. We were the only brand that spoke up, and we immediately opened our doors and invited strangers to come and test stuff off our shelves. You can see it below on my highlights. We immediately got a recall, right? Which is pretty funny, and what a coincidence. It's from the same LA Times article with the same product from 9 months ago from the same disgruntled labs. Fast forward to today. We put out a press release. Less than 1 hour after the press release, right, there was an article by MJ Biz put out, and we read it, and it's saying that there's 5 recalls from us, which is news to us, so because we don't know about it. We called the DCC immediately and said, is there a recall? They said, yes. We said, oh, yeah? Well, is this public record or is it public knowledge? And like, you haven't told us yet. And they said, oh yeah, it's against our policy. We would put it on our website and notify the operators first. But somehow it's already published on MJ Biz. Now there's just way too many coincidences. I'm not sure if it's the Chads trying to take the culture out and take us legacy operators out, or if it's the media trying to look for clickbait, if it's the DCC put out a video, and what do you know? Our retailers start getting the recall email. Crazy coincidence, I know. But let me break it down for y'all. There's an article that comes out. We're the only brand that fires back. Boom, we're the only brand that gets a recall. We're the only brand that puts out a press release. Boom, we're the only brand that gets 5 more recalls. Well, listen, we're just getting started. Now I'm about to go do a podcast, tell my story, and tell y'all more stuff like this bullshit class action that was filed the same day as the article. And honestly, now that I think about it, we haven't even been served from the class action lawsuit yet. And the only way we even knew about it was from some reporter, from some article. It's just so many coincidences. How do they seem to always know everything before everybody else? And listen, after this video comes out, I'm assuming they're going to drop some more recalls. I got some thinking to do. Don't drink and drive, smoke and fly.
Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. I'm really excited to roll into the rest of my story. You guys, what a, oh man. All right. California regulators on Tuesday announced 5 more marijuana product recalls related to banned pesticides in a scandal that has rocked the market for the past month. According to the Department of Cannabis Control, DCC, the recalled products were all vape oil cartridges and pens produced by West Coast Cure, one of the state's top-selling brands with distribution in hundreds of stores. Today's recall is part of the department's ongoing efforts to remove products from the marketplace that contain pesticide. DCC spokesperson David Hafner confirmed to MJ Biz Daily via email. Coniferous spurred, that's wrong. Recall the following WCC products are recalled: birthday cake 1 gram cure pen, lemon cooler 1 gram cure pen, Lucky Charms 1 gram cure pen, Slimer 1 gram live resin cartridge, watermelon sorbet 1 gram cure pen. Hafner said the products all contained a banned greenhouse pesticide typically sprayed directly on leaves to combat caterpillars, fungus gnats, mites, and other pests. That tells you this is growing outside. 4 of the 5 products also were highlighted for containing banned pesticides in a June report by the Los Angeles Times and a Weed Week that detailed the presence of pesticides across a spectrum of products for sale in the world's largest regulated cannabis market. The resulting fallout has cast a shadow over testing labs, their procedures, and test validity, while pitting retailers against brands as regulators try to identify the source of contamination, a difficult task considering the many points of contact for any given product. Meanwhile, the controversy has left cannabis brands, retailers, and testing labs scrambling to regain the confidence of consumers. West Coast Cure responds in a Tuesday news release. West Coast Cure reiterated that its dedication to testing and quality control standards, adding that it invested nearly $1 million in testing last year. The brand said every West Coast Cure product on retail shelves has passed compliance testing by state licensed laboratories. The company also said it initiates quality control testing with labs before production and packaging. At the end of the day, West Coast Cure is not a testing laboratory, nor are we permitted to be one by California regulations, the release noted. Meanwhile, the Orange County-based company criticized regulators and the perceived lack of standardized testing procedures. The state has established proficiency testing standards that do not mirror the standards that are established for compliance tests, West Coast Cure said. And Resco Laboratories and Infinite Chemical Analysis Labs last week filed a class action lawsuit against 13 testing labs, according to the Times, claiming they inflated potency or disregarded the presence of certain contaminants in Certificate of Analysis, COAs. Regulators increased enforcement. The DCC on June 25th issued a mandatory recall for 1 gram Cure Pen vape cartridge from West Coast Cure. The Cannabis Regulatory Agency has been ramping up enforcement and product recalls this year. The agency already has issued 28 product recalls in 2024, widely surpassing the 3 recalls per year issued in 2023 and 2022. The DCC told MJ Biz Daily it now has the capability to test concentrates for pesticides through state labs. The agency is quickly utilizing this new capability, as evidenced by the 5 recalls today and the recall last week, Hafner said. Oh man, this is giving whodunit, Spider-Man. They're all pointing at each other. This is crazy. I appreciate Jay Cure's responding. I think you have to. I think he did a great job of reading a statement. But also, acknowledge you haven't been served by the lawsuit because you're not sued in it. It's labs suing other labs. And the fact that test results are being sold is not a surprise to anyone. We all know this. We know that there's a absolute cap that is possible on THC potency, and I've seen some lab tests that are well above that, and as much as it's great for your marketing, it's bad for the consumer because we're lying to them. I mean, there are a lot of things that can happen, and yes, you know, we invested $1 million in testing because you fucking have to. That's part of standard operating procedure. You have to have these products tested, and yes, it kind of gets expensive as you continue to do batch after batch. Yes, you should test before you fill your carts. The last thing you want to do is fill a bunch of equipment with some shit that's hot filled, and then you lost all your equipment as well. That's a huge loss for the company. Like, these things are absolute standard, and I just think, you know, we'll see who's telling the truth. I think we need to make sure that we're acknowledging that there are standards for how samples are collected. For, you know, the testing labs have to come in and select the compliance tested material. It's not like you get to give them the good ones, which has happened in some states like Colorado at times and others. And, you know, they pick what they want at random. They take it. It's quarantine. Chain of custody is very important. And, you know, having independent people come into your facility, grab things off the shelf and test them is just, that's a questionable practice for me, because you shouldn't be allowing anyone who's not an employee access to your secured area, which your product storage should in fact be. So, you know, we'll see what happens. If they're innocent, you know, prove them innocent. If they're not, continue to protect the consumer, because, you know, we're in retail. It's a scary thing when your customers are coming in and they're saying, hey, we want to buy this, but we don't know if it's safe. You have a right to know what you're putting in your body, and some things that maybe go on foods, you're not combusting that. So we need to make sure that we're following these standards. What do you think, Jace?
Well, I mean, first of all, I think the state is kind of gaslighting the public in this when they highlight the fact that they only had 3 recalls this year and 28 this year, because they did change a lot of the testing standards, as well as the certification on labs that only certain ones are able to test going forward. Because I feel one of the reasons that they only had so many recalls that year is because the state wasn't focused on enforcing any type of enforcement on any of the labs and just letting the labs do whatever they do, such as the inflated test results that you mentioned.
I agree. How great is
that?
that?
I think we need to differentiate between inflated test results, which harm the consumer in their pocketbook, versus dirty testing where you have an unsafe product.
They've changed a lot of the testing protocols, which were allowing for I would say a more thorough test now, Yarrow. And so I was alluding to that and just making it more understandable in regards with the pesticides.
The other thing that's worth noting is, didn't the state finance a testing lab, an independent testing lab, to the tune of, like, I want to
$11 million.
$9 million. This $11 million, and I don't even think that lab is up and running. So what comes to mind for me is, how do you protect the consumer if you can't even stand up your own lab? Mm-hmm. And if, you know, labs have been decrying the lack of standardization in this industry in California for a really long time, and so it's challenging, because the best thing about regulated cannabis is the theory that the supply chain is protected and that it provides the consumer with a greater level of product safety. That is, to me, the foundation of why a regulated industry should exist. When you take that away, or the consumer's not confident that those protections are in place, then what are we doing here?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with you, Yarrow. I think we need a... Oh, sorry, go ahead, Dale.
This is going to be the Lawyers Full Employment Act. I've written these contracts between B2B, okay? And if you have a product recall, we like to put into these contracts who's responsible for it. But if you're a retailer, you just dumped hundreds of thousands of dollars into product, you paid for it, it's on your shelves, and it's got to be taken off your shelf and you can't sell it. Now, is this company, which is not saying these Schedule 1 pesticides were not there. You didn't hear that come out of their mouth, okay? Somehow there are prohibited pesticides on this product. They don't spray that in when they're processing or when they're manufacturing. This comes from the grower. And if this got into the system and got all the way to a retail shelf with a prohibited substance on it, with all this testing, it just tells me this is nothing but a 360-degree shit show. And it took the DCC how long to figure out there's prohibited pesticides on products and retail shelves? Lawyers are going to love this and insurance companies have a lot more power now than the DCC does.
You bring up a super interesting point, Dale. And while we're on this, before we go to you, Sohum, how much liability does the state have? Because if I'm a consumer and I purchase some of these products and I develop some type of thing, my first thought is I should be able to sue the state, because the state originally said that this was clean and clear product based by the standards of which they are regulating.
Yeah, they're getting sued. They're getting sued. It'd be no different than the FDA approving a drug that wasn't safe or allowing an automotive manufacturer to go to market.
Well, the FDA is immune from a lot of drugs that they produce that have proven to not be safe. So that's why I wonder this.
I think if the initial test results that were given back inaccurate or not were under those levels that were required by the state, I think that would probably make the state not at fault. It would come back and the onus would be on the lab who provided false.
Right.
Yeah.
They're still going to get brought to the party. Someone's going to cross-complain against them. Everybody that would touch this product from the retail store back to the cultivator is going to be in these lawsuits. I'd file cross-complaints against anybody. And then what's going to come out, if people will honestly, pony up to what they did, is that there were backroom deals done here that are basically fraud. And insurance companies don't pay for that kind of intentional conduct. That's why I'm saying insurance companies are going to have a lot more power here than the state does, because they might reserve their right to pay this and say, we're going to do some investigation. If someone committed fraud here, that's outside our insurance policy, and we ain't covering it. We're going to
insurance investigators are, if anyone's going to get to the bottom of something, it's a goddamn insurance investigator.
Right.
What I was going to say before, though, is I think there needs to be a wider paradigm cultural shift when it comes to testing within the cannabis industry. So much of it is driven by getting product to the shelf, what's going to be most appealing to the consumer, and not about consistency, not about quality control or quality assurance. I mean, if you look at other producers of any type of product, whether it's edible, consumable, some type of consumer good, these companies invest heavily in internal testing infrastructure so that they can be testing their product throughout their supply chain. So by the time it gets to the lab for their regulatory test, it's nothing more than a formality. They already know what's going to happen. They're not risking huge batches of product on whatever inconsistency there might be in standardization of lab protocol.
100%.
And it is expensive.
And unfortunately, part of the way this is going to happen is that regulatory bodies like the DCC and in California, the DPR, the Department of Pesticides Regulation, need to have a heavier hand when it comes to enforcement to make it clear that this product cannot make it to market. And as a business, especially as a larger operator, you're better off investing in having that infrastructure in-house to conduct your own testing throughout your supply chain, so you're not risking large batches of product having that happen.
I mean, I think we've put that equipment in every facility I built out, right? And there are a couple issues there, but I think, Sohum, I agree with you. You need a very, 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 very skilled technician to operate those very, 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 very sensitive pieces of equipment. So we don't operate on those are absolutes, right? But it is very important, and it is worth the investment to not have those surprises. And I also think, when we're sending it out for compliance testing, listen, we've seen all kinds of stuff happen in this industry. People get a clean compliance sample back, and then they want to go and switch those out with things that are filled with something that they may have gotten that's not regulated, or some conversions, or whatever you're trying to finagle the bagel with today. I think it comes down to we just need to be more concerned with, is this product safe? Can we guarantee that our consumers are safe? Then who's picking on me today?
Yeah, I think it's both, right? And part of, I agree with you wholeheartedly. And I think the way that we're going to have that shift from the cultural perspective of operators is for it to be very expensive for if you have contaminated batches making it to market. That is what's going to push operators to invest more heavily in hiring a real lab director for their internal testing to make sure that their QC and QA SOPs are very robust and making sure that contaminated product doesn't make it to market.
Yeah, and there's only
because that's how it works everywhere else, right?
No, 100%.
Yep. We're way over time. Could we wrap this one?
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, it's 10:35. All right. So, yeah. Big ups to everybody. Thank you for joining us for another episode of High 9 News. You can catch us live weekdays, 9 a.m. Pacific, high noon on the East Coast. It's a very, very lively conversation and very, very important topics. I didn't mean to cut it too short there, but we are like 35 minutes over. Big shout out to Superfan showing love. Do we have any today, Jason?
I don't think so. I don't know. I don't see.
Fuck, man. Y'all making Jason go. You see?
They don't want me to have no ragu, bro. No
okay, because y'all giving us much money.
I guess everyone's a vegan in the chat today.
Offensive.
I guess so, man. No glizzies for y'all.
Vegan chat.
There's vegan glizzies too. Don't get it twisted.
Vegan glizzies are also delicious.
Yeah, plant-based.
Don't get your glizzy twisted.
Yes. Everybody else joining us live on the join us live as the audience and online supporters, catching us across all media platforms, tuning in each day to the headlines of chaos, also known as the developing cannabis industry, to our vetted correspondent team tuning in from all over, bringing us much needed variety of perspective and your respective opinions to the table. Our production team, Cloud Media Partners, all the sponsors keeping our lights on and AV struggles to a minimum. And always Cannabis Sativa L, the reason why we show up to read these stories every single day. Thank you. It has been Wednesday, Hump Day, July 3rd, 2024. And you've all been blessed with the top industry headlines. Hope is enough for you to put in your pipe and smoke at least until tomorrow, which is what, Jason? What is tomorrow?
Oh, yeah, that's right. It is America's birthday. Yeah, the 4th of July. Bang, bang, bang. Pow, pow, pow. It is a fireworky Thursday.
I guess America's kind of like Jesus, where his birthday really ain't on the 25th of December, and America's birthday really is not on July 4th. But
it is
different conversation for a different day.
To him and his family, and rest in peace, Chef.
I'll Rico Lamitte, the dopest dad on the street for High 9 News, America's #1 daily news show. And today, we're gonna pop this thing on out to Uncle Dan.
Hold on 1 second, Rico. Rico,
you got to announce that?
1 second. There is something that where did it go? It's I guess it doesn't let me scroll back that far. It's so crazy. Nick did mention something this morning about a holiday today or an anniversary today.
The battle ended.
Yes, I'm trying to find exactly what he said, and I can't find it. I'm sorry, but I did want to make sure that we did mention that.
Battle of Gettysburg.
The Battle of Gettysburg.
Gettysburg and Vicksburg.
Yes, thank you.
Make sure the address is listed properly.
Mm-hmm.
I caught that one, Rico.
Uncle Dale, you gonna take us out?
Yeah. I just want to point out that the pressure cooker in this country for political anxiety and anger is way up. The right's motivated by fear, the left's motivated by frustration, and most of us are somewhere in the middle going, what the fuck are you guys all thinking? Let's remember we got more in common than we have differences here, and that we're all trying to get to the same place. So we don't need to hurt each other, kill each other, fight each other. We need to work on cooperation. Very feminine thing, but I think we need a lot of it right now. So that's my takeout for today, guys. And the anniversary tomorrow of the 4th, I was in the Navy. I've worn the uniform. And our country still is the best in the world.
Yeah,
let's keep that in mind, too.
That's right. America.
Fuck yeah.
America.